Our strength failed out of fear and exhaustion, and many of us didn't know how to swim. Besides, it was in the middle of the night and we'd been working all day. When a boat arrived to save us, we climbed up and I started to ask, "Are we all here? Were we all saved?" "Yes," they told me. I shouted their names one by one. If someone didn't answer, I repeated his name louder. When I finished the list, 3 hadn't answered. Right away, I knew they had died.
After a morning of hard work, the fishermen see the fruits of their labor and they vigorously pull in the net, knowing it is full of fish. These are tenacious and proud men who only weeks before survived a shipwreck and today celebrate their reunion with life. Despite the pressure that the large ships have put on the sea, despite the pillage, the Mauritanian coast still thrives with fish. But let there be no doubt about it, 10 years ago the catches were much bigger. How much longer can it hold out? The return to the beach is a moment of great satisfaction. On a good day, they bring in more than a ton of fish. But even under the best of conditions, on a day like today, this hard work does not provide the fishermen with more than minimal sustenance. A fisherman earns a modest $3 from a full shipload like this. The owner, usually one or several of the fishermen, gets a little more, just enough to pay for the gasoline and the wear and tear on the equipment. A motor costs about $1,500 and a boat close to $1,100. Often, when the fish get scarce along the nearest coast, the ship captains organize fishing expeditions on the high seas that last between 7 and 10 days. They use the same boats, but the conditions are much tougher. Eating, drinking, and sleeping inside the boat, at the mercy of the wind, and in danger of being run down by the commercial ships. Up until 1982, the fishermen received some aid. Then the aid changed hands, finally ending up in the hands of the nouveau riche, who have put together their own fleets with the subsidies. They have no experience, they don't respect contracts or the norms that have always ruled fishing. Only a small part of the fish that is produced on the traditional market is sold for export. The rest is sent in cars to the interior of the country. The cars used to transport the fish aren't exactly new. When a vehicle in Europe is deemed ready to be sold for parts, in Africa it has another 20 years of life. And when, after those 20 years have passed, it has drawn its last breath, recycling allows for its reincarnation as a cart, a coffee pot, or the nails to build ships. All those things that no longer work in Europe end up in Africa. Africans resuscitate objects, bringing them back to life with all the know-how and inventiveness that comes from necessity. It's the moment of the mechanic's magic. In Africa, everyone has an opinion, only one person works, and the rest watch. But when the magic also fails, there is no other option but to turn to more traditional methods. As at sea, one person shouts and the rest push. At dusk, all activity stops and the universe of this city within a city dozes off in accordance with the day's rhythm. Tomorrow will not be another day. It will be the same faces, the same difficulties, and the same will to survive.
I've devoted my life to working with the men of the sea, at Nouakchott port and all along the coast. We will travel to the north of the country, along the narrow corridor of sand and water that all vehicular traffic uses when the tides are low. Right now, and until the Algerian routes of In Salah and Tamanrasset are open again. This is the only road that connects North Africa with sub-Saharan West Africa. I have lived and worked with various communities of traditional fishermen all along this coast. Most of them have been the sole inhabitants of these lands for centuries. The rest have come over the past few decades. Mohamed Levy is one of the many solitary fishermen who live and work along the Mauritanian coast. He is from Attar in the inland desert, but his love of adventure and wide horizons made him leave the nomadic life 15 years ago, and he moved to the sea to live as a fisherman. His family, his wife and 3 children, live in Nouakchott. He spends 2/3 of the year alone by the sea. Mohamed Levy does not know how to swim. He mostly fishes shark and manta ray, which he later sells to Madame Bamba. The shark fins go to Chinese merchants who export them to their country.
I'm here to work, but my heart is in the country. I miss my family. But I go to Nouakchott 2 or 3 days each month to sell fish, and I see them there. I almost never go into the interior, but I do remember the desert sometimes. One can live with dignity here, but it is hard. It has its good and its bad moments. Sometimes whole weeks pass without a single catch, and other times I can't keep up with all the fish. There are no fixed rules. You have to be alert and wait for your chance. I spend hours watching the nets in the sea, looking for signs that the fish have decided to come near the shore. I don't receive any kind of aid. Around here, there are other fishermen who work like I do, and we support each other. We help each other. No one knows that we're here. Only God knows. The radio is the only way we have of staying in touch with the outside world. I listen to the news and to music. Music's what I enjoy the most.
Towards the north, parallel to the coastline, the meeting of water and sand is even wilder, more violent, and dominated by a precise and brutal beauty. From Cape Timorist, one enters the so-called Arguin Bank, an area of shallows that occupy the former estuary of a dried-up river. Since 1976, it has been a national park, protecting the millions of birds that arrive each winter from places as far away as Europe or Siberia. It is a hard land facing a rich sea, and it is as fragile as a baby. A land whose human landscape has barely changed over the centuries. The Imragan, the only fishermen who have always lived along the Mauritanian coast, must also navigate the contradictions of these modern times. They are protected by park laws, but these same laws also prevent them from joining the modern world. Mohamed Ouma is one of the 88 Imragen who live in Arguin Bank National Park. Today, as every morning, he has risen at sunrise to eke out his daily living. Fishing is the only way of life authorized by the park laws, and only under certain strict conditions.